Hey there, hope you're doing good. Today we are going to talk about what makes for good interview questions when hiring. First, good questions should be unambiguous. If there are different ways to interpret the question, you don't know if a wrong answer is a lack of skill on the part of the candidate or a problem with the way you have asked the question, right? So it's okay to ask an open-ended question as long as the ambiguity is in the answer and not the question. For example, if you ask, how do you design Twitter? There are multiple ways to do it, multiple aspects that could be explored. One person may discuss more about scalability, one person may discuss security, and so on. This is good. But the question itself is clear. On the other hand, if you asked, how do you design a social network? Now, that could mean anything. It could be a public network like Twitter, a private one like Facebook. It could be an image-based network like Instagram. It could be anything, right? So that's a bad question. Instead, you should ask a specific question like, how would you design Instagram? So, good questions should be unambiguous. Good questions should not require too much context because it takes too much time to explain, and time is limited in an interview. Also, the more you explain, more the chance of misunderstanding, just at a human level. It may not be a problem with the candidate. Anybody, when told something very complex, they would misunderstand, right? So, that's not good in an interview. Don't ask textbook questions like what is a hash table. Any what is something type questions are not good because even if they answer correctly, you never know if they mugged it up or if they truly understand it or even whether they're Googling in another tab. Instead, ask a question that requires them to apply the skill in a real world situation. For example, don't ask what is time complexity or what is the time complexity of sorting. Instead, pose an array manipulation question. There is an array, it has some elements, and we are doing some processing, whatever. And then ask, would it be faster if we sorted the array before processing it? Basically, what you are trying to get at is, yes, sorting takes some time, but if it makes the processing faster, it could be worth it. So now we are talking about the time complexity of sorting. The candidate has to analyze the time complexity of sorting and the time complexity of the original algorithm and see if sorting will make the processing faster. So for example, if the original algorithm is, let's say, log n, sorting will take more than log n. So it's not going to make it faster, right? It's going to make it slower. So in this case, we are testing whether the candidate can apply his knowledge to a real scenario. So scenario-based questions, not textbook questions. Application of knowledge, not mugging up things. The next suggestion is write questions down ahead of time. If you ask on the fly, you may ask it in a slightly different way, which may seem like the same thing, but it can result in a different answer for no fault of the candidate. So write down your questions. A question should not reject everyone. That's too hard. On the other hand, it shouldn't pass everyone. For example, if you ask, is Python dynamically typed? And everyone says yes, that's not serving the purpose of separating the wheat from the chaff. Don't hesitate to ask advanced questions. Sometimes people hesitate saying, no, but even if someone may not know the advanced stuff, they may be a good engineer. They may be a good but not great engineer, which is enough for us. This may be the objection. But that's not an argument against asking advanced questions. You can ask advanced questions and you can accept a lower percentage of correct answers as your threshold. So, for example, if you ask simple questions and you expect candidates to get, let's say, 8 out of 10 correctly, you can ask advanced questions and expect them to get 2 or 3 out of 10 correctly. So asking advanced questions doesn't mean that you are going to reject people who are good but not great. That's up to you. The two advantages of asking advanced questions are it helps you separate out good from great candidates because a good candidate and a great candidate will both answer basic questions. Secondly, asking advanced questions helps you evaluate the candidate's skill quicker than asking basic questions because you'd ask a bunch of basic questions to know how good they are. Whereas if you ask an advanced question and they answer it, that immediately is a strong signal. Don't ask too many questions that are niche and not many engineers need to know it. For example, if you are hiring a, let's say, iOS engineer, knowing how to process images is not required for most iOS apps. So that's not a good skill to test for, right? You should test for skills that you need. So don't, for example, blindly ask data structures and algorithms because in industry we don't use it. Even at Google, I probably used time complexity once in 5 years. So ask questions that reflect the work. And 90% of programming is just moving data from one place to another and processing it and converting formats and so on. The really hardcore deep tech stuff that requires high performance work is very rare. So don't blindly ask data structures and algorithms questions. So anyway, these are some suggestions on what make for good interview questions. If you'd like me to advise your team on how to interview better, there's a link in the description for my consulting website. Thank you.